Today's session, right, it's on this topic of simplified information access using conversational AI, right? So a little bit, just a quick introduction about iLink Digital as well as Purple Slate, and iLink Digital. Uh, it's an array of, companies focus primarily around digital transformation and related services. Where we come in, Purple Slate, we focus exclusively on conversational AI related, products and solutions. And that's myself. I'm one of the co-founder of this company, and I take care of pretty much the product management aspects of it. And before Purple Slate, pretty much I spent a good amount of time in Wall Street, building technology for the banks, and and being very much passionate about engineering as well as product innovation, and got fascinated by the technology around voice, and the ability for computers these days, computers are devices, to understand the language we speak, right? I mean, the simplest interface I can, or rather, that the most common one, which most of us are familiar with, whether it is your Siri on your iPhone or Alexa devices and all that. I think that similar experience is now, or rather, it's getting prominently, implemented for various enterprise applications as well, right? I think that's what we are focused on. We primarily leverage language, or rather, conversational AI related technologies for enterprise solutions, right? So since the topic of this discussion itself, right? I mean, today's talk, it's about simplifying information access with conversational AI. I thought I'll just set a quick context, in terms of what exactly do we mean by conversational AI, and then what does it. So it is a simple definition of it goes like this. It's the application of technologies that primarily use language as the interface. And I mean, when I say language, both in the voice format as well as text. When we say text, any of the chat medium, that we use extensively today, whether it is your collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams, Slack, or anything, or any of your even social media platforms, whether it is WeChat, your iMessage, or WhatsApp and all that, right? All those are now really becoming channels or mediums for us to consume services, which till date, which continues to do so. Predominantly it is either a web application or a mobile, app on our smartphones. Now, more and more applications, enterprise applications and services are getting consumed through the conversational medium, right? I think that's pretty much, is what we are trying to leverage. I mean, not just the messaging platforms, including, as I said, including devices like your smart speakers, or even today, if you really take a look at most of the modern day automobiles. I mean, your cars, pretty much, they all have a voice interface, right? Where you just communicate to the device, using voice commands and all that, right? So using language, which is primarily English, what we use to communicate. I think, how do we really, communicate, or rather, communicate with a device or a computer using language, and then, get services consumed. That's pretty much, what we call it as conversational AI, right? So more specific to the topic, around information access. I mean, just one quick quote. I thought, okay, I'll start with this, especially for folks who have worked on data and analytics for a long period of time. You would understand what I'm really talking about here. Typical in, I mean, there are some statistics which says, it's typical information workers spend a significant portion of the time, 1/3 of your day, goes in looking for information, right? When we say looking for information, it is one is getting access to the right source of information. The other one is, even though you may have the data, trying to get the answers, which you're really looking for, right? I think, whether it is for operational decision making, or as part of your daily job, as simple as, say for example, if you're a project manager, so you're running a meeting, and then, suddenly you see So, there is an issue with quality, and then, say if we want to look at, hey, how many defects did we have in the last week or the last quarter? Is it trending up or is it trending down? Some of these very simple questions, right? All these are, information which we might need for a day-to-day operations. All right. So even the other thing is, even if it is like a sales job, I mean, people may have questions on, say you're sitting in a meeting, we are talking about revenue numbers. You just see that a particular region is not doing well. Why is that number going down? What is really the contributing factor? All these are what we normally use in our day-to-day life. And how do we really consume that information, right? I mean, today, predominantly through various reports, dashboards, Excel sheets, and all that. But getting access to that particular question, which we have, it's still it's a very much still time consuming process, right? So the other thing is the modern age, where we are currently, right? I think just again another one interesting piece of statistics, which I found in the HBR. I thought it made a lot more sense. It's in a day-to-day life, just the amount of time it takes to get certain things done, whether it is booking a cab and Uber or, your flight trip or, those are all getting crunched, in like very few minutes to seconds or rather, in hours. But still, why should the information consumption area, if it is, for me, if I'm looking for a piece of information, why is that still taking like hours or days and if not weeks or months, right? I think that is still consuming, if we really have to compare this with any other task, which we do today, right? I think the information access still, it's a time consuming process. And what it really entails is, it's not just about the delay in getting access to information, which directly correlates to your ability to make, not your inability rather, to make timely decisions or take some actions. I think that's the direct impact of not having access to this information. But think about it. I mean, other than the enterprise data, anything and everything, we go to the browser and then use the most popular search engines, right? Whether it is Bing, Google, or anything, any other information, we are able to get it the tip of a finger, just by asking that question in the favorite search engines, right? Why isn't that not possible within an enterprise for any of other data sets? I think that's kind of where we are leading towards, in terms of can we really replicate the same experience to match the modern world speed, with the way we consumed various other services, right? So here is one simple definition, or rather, which we take. Hey, today's information needs are for a platform that delivers trustworthy insights across user persona and faster than ever before at scale on data that makes sense, right? So just to simplify it, there are few words, keywords in that definition, which are very, very important, right? I mean, which I have highlighted here. One is trustworthy in the sense directly related to either the quality of the data or your ability to get consistent results, from the enterprise data. And then there are different sets of users within any typical enterprise. You have operational, decision makers. You have senior management. Um, all these people, they all may be consuming the same data, but at the level, the amount of insights, at the level of insights might be different, right, for different people. So all of them might still be using the same data sets, but at the same time, the way the answers they are looking for could be very, very different. But so your tool has to cater to these diverse set of users, right? Faster. I just talked about, the modern day need, where we are really after, getting access to information in a much, much faster speed, at scale. Absolutely, this I'm sure, all of us will be able to relate to today's world, the amount of data, nobody deletes anything. I mean, right? So it is the time of big data just grows, infinitely, right? I mean, so how do we really still manage to get these insights out of this very, very large volume of data, which we are accumulating every day, right? And the last one is also extremely important, in the sense, which makes sense in the sense It's not about having a very complex or very elaborate report or a dashboard. Um, all of us, if you're a user, we just have a question, right? I mean, how easy it is for us to get answer to that question, which really makes sense. I mean, it's not just about having a scorecard with tens of KPIs or 15 different metrics and all that. All of that at the end of the day, right? I mean, why are we even looking at it, or why are we even looking at a report or a dashboard? It's that one piece of question which we have. How do we really quickly get that answer for that question? So that the way we consume that information, it has to really make sense, for us to either take an action or for the decision making process and all that, right? So little more context around, before we really jump into the solution which we're going to showcase today, right? This is I've listed like 6 points which talks about today's data rich world, right? I mean, I just mentioned the amount of data which we are accumulating. Any digital enterprise these days is accumulating, it's just extremely, very, very large. It's just increasing at a much faster pace, right? But this also directly correlates to the challenges with access to, even though many of the companies, and again, anyone who's been working on data related space, you would be able to relate to this. There are many data rich companies, not necessarily information rich companies. I mean, it's like you might be collecting a lot amount, very large volume of data, but the ability to gather, or rather, gain insights and information out of this, or making it available to your users, it's still a big challenge, right? So users still struggle to get access to quality data, right? The third one is something, which it's like, this generation, I mean, we all since we are used to, getting access to our information for our personal life using the famous search engines, right? Similar need or similar expectation is what we have even within an enterprise. We all have this momentary data need, whether we are in an airport, we are talking to a customer, whether you're in a meeting, we all have questions. I mean, I just gave this example about you're in a project review, we're talking about quality, we're wondering, hey, how is this quality trending over the last few weeks? Or you're talking to a customer, someone is complaining about quality. Hey, how many incidents do we have for this customer? Or, we are in a sales review meeting, looking at the numbers for the previous quarter. What is really contributing to this revenue drop? All these are like questions, which we have at different moments in our life. And then, how do we get access to information for these momentary information needs, right? And at the same time, it's not just about having a number, your ability to drill down to the granular details, for us to look at more specific piece of information. And very large organization, especially the point number 5, it's a very common site where you have very diverse set of business intelligence tools, right? You have one for building a report, another one to build a dashboard, another one for self-service. So each one of them, do cater to different needs, but at the same time, it's extremely fragmented, and of course, resulting in your TCO, or the operational cost and all that. And sixth is also something, which is very, very common occurrence these days, despite the investments. It's also very kind of unfortunate in some places where, the ROI on these technology investments are not really, producing the results, which we really need, right? This is what I was talking about, the momentary information needs, right? What we call as the I need to know now moment, right? Like, hey, if you launched a new website, we might be interested, hey, what pages do users spend most of the time on? What channel do customer in the age group use? These are like some examples for some of the questions, which anybody who's consuming data, would be having. And then, this is the answer to these questions is what, we try to get, when we really look at data, right? I mean, so all these are like, questions. And then, we could be consuming a report or a dashboard or anything, but ultimately, what we're really trying to do is trying to get answers to these questions at different points in time, for our decision making, right? And there is also this factor around, the modern day needs. can I really get these insights from, as I said, the data is growing exponentially, with very large volume of data, answers at this particular moment, very similar to how we consume information through our popular search engines. And sometimes, it's not just about getting an answer. What we do post facto, it could be that, hey, I really have to, I look at this data and then, maybe I have to give it to somebody to act on it, or rather, right? So your ability to do the follow-ups, in terms of collaborate, taking actions, and all in, as I said, we also have to solve this problem around, it's not like having yet another tool to do this, solve this problem. We already have a fragmented BI tool set. Can we really combine, again, all of them into one place? It's not like, having one tool to get the answer, another one to do something else. We keep sharing insights over emails back and forth or calling somebody. Can all those interactions happen in one single place, which really facilitates the decision-making process and all that. And at the same time, the scale or the agility of the business these days are also growing tremendously, right? So can these tools be really match the scale and agility of today's modern business world, right? So how do we really make it? I mean, that's the very, very simplistic form, how to make it easily available to everyone's use, right? So just a few more slides, on context, since we are talking about leveraging conversational AI for this problem, right? So as I said, remember what is conversational AI? Our ability to leverage language as an interface, which is primarily voice and text and all that, right? So just to quickly talk about how is this particular field, it's also maturing, it's whenever we talk about a conversational AI solution, these are like the 5 aspects which are very, very critical. Can it really talk or text or chat? So which means, can we use interface modes like voice and text? It's not just about your ability to speak. Say, for example, when you ask a question to Alexa, it's not just about Alexa is able to receive the question. Can it really understand, so that it can respond better, right? I think that's very, very important aspect of conversational AI. It's around the language understanding. How good is this language understanding? And one simple factor which affects language understanding, or rather, even the human communication, is with the vocabulary. We use this different synonyms or different words to mean the same thing, right? How good is the language understanding, with over a very decent vocabulary and all that? I mean, those are like very, very important aspects of conversational AI solutions. Can it really learn continuously? In the sense, any machine learning applications or AI, it matures over a period of time, just like human intelligence, with continuous training. Say, for example, one common use, for where we work with a healthcare provider. So you take drug names like, say, doxycycline 10 mg. Somebody could be referring that, with mg. Another user could be referring to the same information as milligrams, right? So do milligrams and mg, do they really mean the same thing? And so how do we keep training the model, with these different vocabularies, and then, how do we let it mature over a period of time continuously, right? Does it know, in the sense, at the end of the day, you may have, it understands voice or it understands text. It has a very good, language understanding capability. But at the same time, it has to respond back, with the right piece of information. So access to the right data or the information to respond back. And can it really lead me to taking decisions or taking actions, with the follow-ups and all that? I think these are some very, I feel like 5 critical factors which are essential for successful or very useful conversational AI applications, right? And the technology around this space has been maturing on these 5 aspects, on a constant basis. So it is at a very, very decent level of maturity. Some of the, say, for example, the language understanding solution, solution on Azure. I mean, they say that, it's closer to human comprehension levels, in terms of the error rates and all that, right? So, and some of these underlying technologies have, are available at a very, very decent level of maturity for, consumption, right? And another one, just to set the context on how the information systems have evolved over a period of time. For people who have been in the IT industry for a very long time, you would be able to relate to this. It all started with, if we have to take a step back, like a few decades back, with the rise of mainframe computers, related to, how the whole data processing shifted from the human, to with the usage of computers and data processing and all that. Started with computers. You had reports produced, and then you had, with the PC revolution, you had the spreadsheets applications coming up, right? More and more the spreadsheets were used to crunch data and to consume information and all that. And then you had the different business intelligence tools when BI and data warehousing really became popular with the amount of data and how the concept of objective decision making really came into picture. More and more people started relying on data to make decisions. So you had these array of BI and business intelligence and dashboard tools available. And then the smartphone revolution led to having this information again available in a mobile phone and all that, right? So what it really meant was, what you see on this the arrow at the top, the time it took for the concept, it is shrinking, from weeks, days to hours, right? But the question is, for this momentary information which we are talking about now, in today's, what is that the new set of tools are going to be, from reports to dashboards to mobile BI, so that's where our proposition is. I think, you need a conversation tool, like just like, so today, if I need an information, I'm just texting my friend and then asking a question and then getting a response back, right? Can we have a similar experience replicated even for our momentary information need, to again, to take you back to the example like I'm giving, hey, we are, say you are in an airport, and then, so you have a customer who complains about quality. What do? We just call someone, hey, can you send me this data on the quality last month? And then, someone is going to email it to you, and then, you get that information. Or we ask them, hey, can you really tell me how many defects or how many incidents did we have last month, right? I think they're going to give you a piece of information. Instead, can I really text a conversational AI solution and say, hey, show me the incidents from last month, and then it just gives you back that number in your messaging application, right? Or in your collaboration tool with like Microsoft Teams or Slack or anything like that. Right? That is what we're saying. It's like, I think because of this shrinking, or rather, the time it where we really need that information at this particular moment, conversational AI-based solution could be a lot more powerful. And I'll show you an example of what exactly we mean by that and all that. So the other thing is, this is the way why conversational AI-based solution could be a lot more relevant to this is also because of it's this how we really consume information, right? So if I have an answer, I have a question, what we really do is, it's we get the answer, and then that question kind of or rather the answer kind of triggers a follow-up question, right? You say, for example, even if it is an incident, you just say, hey, we have 15. Immediately you're saying, hey, is 15, you need to get a perspective of 15. Is it 15 too good or too low or too high? Then, you look at a trend. Then you look at a contributing factor. So a piece of information kind of, triggers follow-up questions. And then, till we really have the answer, and then, we take a decision. That's the way, we really go about consuming information, right? I mean, in fact, as they say, knowledge really, once you become knowledgeable on something, that means, you have more questions than answers, right? I think that's the way, we've been, humans have been consuming information, right? So how do we really get our answers today, right? So you have an information, you ask a trusted source, you get the answers, it goes in the cycle. The answers lead to more questions. And finally, once you feel you have the right information, you take action, right? But contrast that to what we have today, in the analytics world of today, right? One common, we call it as the big metrics. When all you have is mind-numbing charts, dashboards, and reports, there are like, where I've seen there are more scorecards and KPIs than, even the number of employees did. Everybody have their own version of, the scorecards and reports. There are just too much of numbers. And it's almost like, data everywhere and not a byte, that is really useful or when you really need it the most, right? I think this is a very common problem across enterprises, where you have too many of metrics and reports and right, rather than to get it. I mean, as I said, what are we really looking at the end of the day? It's just an answer, but you just have to, too many sources or too much of these metrics and tools, when you really need a piece of information, right? And information access is still too technical, whether you have to, starting from the different query languages to scripts to spreadsheets, or you really have to work with an IT team to produce a piece of data, or they may be having a dashboards, but at the same time, maybe the dashboard doesn't answer all the questions, so you have to very constantly, work with an IT team, especially for the business folks. I mean, or the non-technical folks. It's still getting access to information is still too technical. It is not that easy, and right. And this is the most common problem, which is like the painful delays. As I said, if we take this cycle of asking a trusted source and getting an answers, I mean, most of the organizations, it's a very common problem where the amount of time it takes to get access to information is still significant. Right. I think our goal is, how do we really simplify this? Can we really, sometimes I've heard, it's like it goes from days to months, where it usually happens in through emails, phone calls. Hey, okay, you may have a data set that may, you still maybe it's still may not be complete. You again ask for more data sets and then, keep refining it. It goes in a very, very painful iterative process, right? So I think painful delays is a very, very common problem today, when we are really looking for quick information access, right? So what we're really saying is, if you take the modern information access challenge, it's not about the capture and store, or rather, the technology. Today, we have the sufficient technology at some extremely good maturity, for capturing very high velocity, high volume data, and storage, even storage from a cost perspective has also come down drastically, right? I mean, so that's one of the reasons, we don't delete anything. The data grows exponentially, and then, our ability to capture and store has grown significantly, while still it is a struggle to get access, right? Making this data available on a timely manner, and then, the speed of access is still the challenge. So the one, which I've highlighted in pink is the challenge, which we are trying to address through our solution, right? There is also one more factor which is very essential, which we call as the findability or discoverability of information, right? What exactly do we mean by that? I have a couple of examples here, right? So when we are looking for information, there are certain questions which are like very straightforward. Hey, what is the revenue last quarter? Hey, it is $1 million. Okay. But this is like, you have a very specific question, and then, you are able to get an answer. But what is even more useful, or a very good trait for an analytics application, is not just the answer. It's, hey, by the way, do you know that the products A and B contribute 72% of it, and Region West is contributing this much of it, right? I think that is what we really mean by discoverability, right? It's again another very useful piece of information, which is not asked for, but at the same time, it's kind of latent, and then, it is you're able to derive that information. Another example, I mean, there are a few other examples I have. Hey, what is the COVID count today? There is a number, but do we really know what is really contributing to it? Where is it really high? And then, it's is it really concentrated on few specific regions and all that, right? How many visits did we have on our new website? Yeah, it's a big good number, 100,000 pages, but do we know that 90% of the people are just walking off, from the homepage, right? I think this is something which is very, very essential, in terms of for rather a very important attribute for a good analytics application. It's not just about providing the findability. It is about how good is it for you to discover new pieces of information, which would help you in the decision-making process, right? So the theory, I mean, it's like the goal of any good information system should be to promote discoverability as much as the findability. It's not just about getting an answer. can it really help you discover more piece of information, which would help you, in the decision-making process? I think this is a very important trait for any of the modern data application. And I'll show you some examples in terms of how our platform really helps you with these, both findability and discoverability as well, quickly. So what we really mean by this, hey, this, I didn't know this. Oh, that's interesting, right? I think that is what, even when we go to a search engine, sometimes, when you ask a question, it's not, usually it is the first line of information, which is very useful. But at the same time, you also see that, hey, lot of Intel AI-based recommendations. By the way, hey, people looked at this, they also did this, and then, hey, here are some recommendations, here are some follow-up questions that might be useful and all that. I think those are the ones, which would really enhance the information access process, which is the like how good is the discoverability of that information. So how do we really achieve this? Okay, so what we're really saying is, when you have momentary questions on data, I mean, it's rather than exposing, or rather, to your users to the common reports, dashboards, and all, can we really provide them the very straightforward answer, and along with some insights, right, related to that answer? I think that's why I gave this example. It is almost like picking up the phone and calling somebody, or rather texting someone, hey, um, um, uh, you know, how many incidents, what does it really contribute? So that kind of very pointed answer, can we really try to achieve that instead of the way we normally do it today with reports, Excel sheets, and dashboards, right? So, or what we really call is, can we just have them just ask, right, in the language they speak, like questions like this. Hey, what is the incurred claim ratio on a travel protect plan? Hey, show me the usage on mobile platforms. These are all, again, some questions which we have, in some of our implementation for our customers, right? Say, for example, we work with a very popular, very large pet care provider. So it's like, so the doctors use our platform to get answers like questions. Hey, show me the pets that were treated for influenza and prescribed a particular drug. And they just ask this question in English, and then, it pulls the data back, right? And the last one, it's like, hey, how many incidents did we have last month for this particular customer, and on the severity, and all these, basically, you are just letting the user ask that question in English, and then, get the response back. So this is what we really call as conversational, conversational insights, and for information access. And this particular one, I mean, there is a stat from Gartner as well, which says it's increasingly becoming very common these days. More and more solutions are getting built in this approach. I mean, kind of very similar to how we use a popular search engine, and the similar experience is what is getting replicated for enterprise information access as well, right? So let me give you one very simple example. Say, this is the question. Imagine, with your sales data, this is a question you have. Hey, which region is really doing well on this particular product, right? There are two ways to do this. Either, which is supposedly the most common way, it could be a report or a dashboard today, where there is a whole bunch of metrics, and there is one particular metrics here, which can answer this question. Hey, in region, I can say that for product XYZ, it takes a good amount of time for me to interpret it and say that, hey, yeah, it could be region South, which is doing well on this particular one, right? So this is the way most commonly it is done today. It is either a metric dashboard or a scorecard or what, a report or anything, right? But instead, imagine, if you could have something like this. I mean, this is why I'm saying it's like texting somebody. You ask the same question, which region is doing well. So there is a response which says, hey, it is the best region, with a value of $3.2 million. This is why the West region is the one, which is really doing well. By the way, do you know that it has been trending like this, right? So which is the discoverability part of it. So rather than having an option where we are left to interpret an answer, from a dashboard or a report, can we really provide a straightforward answer? Since the question is which region, hey, it is region West, which is doing well and with this amount, and add it, supplement it with few more insights, right? So this is precisely what we call as a conversational AI approach, where you ask the question and then, try to get the response back straight, to the question along with few of the insights, that could enhance the response, right? So this is what, again, just a few minutes, I'll show you some very good examples with our platform on how we really achieve it, right? So in summary, I think this is precisely what we mean by leveraging conversational AI for information access, right? And any questions so far? Perhaps I can just take a quick pause here. Any comments? Any questions? I hope you're still able to hear me. All right. So with this, and one more thing, CSS, I showed you just few slides back. I showed you the evolution of information systems, right? From your reports to dashboards to the mobile BI, Excel sheets, and all that. Now, I mean, for a second, just think about it a little. I mean, let's just think a bit more futuristic, right? How is this really, especially when in this new world, a new digital world, when we have exponential amount of data growing almost near real time. What would be the next innovation or the next step, or rather, how would this BI business intelligence or the information access evolve to cater to this new requirement? Quick response from an extremely large amount of data. For that particular question I have right now, as I said, the speed, it is going to be a new generation, where we all need that answer right now, just like how we are using the search engines, right? So that's why there is a new need which is getting created. And what would be the tool? I think that's where, we have kind of, saying the conversational AI based tools could be the ones, which can help solve this new need, right? In terms of for this AI first generation. So we really need a new way to, consume, or rather, vehicle to for information access for this new age and AI first generation, right? So this is what we call as, I mean, our solution, I just want to to introduce a platform called Kia, right? And I mean, if you're just curious, why we even named it Kia. See, Kia is from a parrot species, and, a bird which some very supposedly high levels of IQ. So, that's why we picked this name. So we really call this, or rather, trying to, our tagline is more like, can we really talk to your data, right? What do we really mean by that? It's like, so using the platform Kia, and then there is a way in which you can connect to your data set, and then you train Kia on this data set. You start asking questions like this. I mean, there is one example here, hey, show me the daily trend of policies by intermediate type in particular state, and for the time zone, any kind of questions, in simple English constructs, you can use a platform to get answers like these, by asking questions. I mean, there are quite a few examples. I'll just show you in a moment. But in summary, it's basically, you using Kia, you have the ability to ask questions in simple English constructs and get responses back. When we say responses, it can produce a voice response, like very similar to how a Siri or an Alexa device would respond. And along with it, you get the visuals and various other ways, in which for you to provide the answer to that question, right? And that's pretty much what Kia does, right? So what exactly is Kia? This is our definition in terms of, hey, it's a smart, knowledgeable virtual data analyst. It's that's why I was talking about this knowledge of, hey, imagine talking to someone who's knowledgeable, right? If you have a question, something very similar is what, we are trying to replicate with Kia. We call it as a virtual data analyst. It can just mine millions of rows of data and provide answers and more. The more part of it, quote unquote, relates to the discoverability, right? It's not just about getting an answer. It can also tell you, hey, by the way, it is trending down now. This is what is contributing. This is why it's going down. More to the why part of it. I think, it can do that. And in the language you speak. That's our definition of our platform Kia. So remember, this flow I had shown some time back, when on how we consume information. So basically, when you have an information, what we're really saying is one highlighted in green is getting replaced with Kia. So your users or you start having engaging in a conversation with Kia to get the answer. That is what we're Kia kind of at a very high level tries to answer. It's not just about one question. You keep asking multiple questions for any of your information access, and you can have basically you can engage in a very meaningful conversation. Right, that's what Kia does. So another way to put it is this, so say for example, you have data like this. How do you turn huge volume of data, right, into information like this, to where you can ask these questions, hey, which region is doing well? It's one way today, it is done is whether it is through an Excel sheet or any other BI platforms, right? It's like, you have these dashboards or reports or various other analytics solutions which are built on top of the data, right? So instead, if we have any unstructured data, can we really start asking these questions like a conversation? That's pretty much, again, it's what Kia does. Right? Very simple steps. You train Kia on the enterprise data and then start getting answers. There are different modules of our application which help you achieve this, which again, I'll just talk about it soon. I'll show you with some examples. The data it can come from many sources. Again, for anyone who's worked on, I mean, you have all kinds of database technologies these days, right? So we support any of these, very popular data sources. It can MySQL, popular relational stuff to NoSQL document stores, right across different platforms. Wherever your data is, you would be able to source the data, build data pipelines, and train Kia on this. And then once you do that, and then it kind of lets you get answers on these, right? And this is again another problem. I mean, data doesn't sit. I mean, with everyday business operations, it's almost like everyday digital activity. Data grows at a much faster rate these days. It can be through real-time streams or micro batch, or on request. You can, as your data grows, we really need to train or rather expose data to Kia, so that it can get you the most recent answers and all that. So we do have ability to set up data pipelines at different time frequencies, for you to mature or rather continuously retrain Kia on this, so that your information is more current and it is timely, right? There are few variations of the software which is available. It's a very simple question widget. Again, quickly, I'll just show you these applications in a quick demo. We call it as a question widget or a chat application, and it is also available, in a mobile application as well. Right. These are at a very high level, the Kia ecosystem. You have the studio which takes care of the data pipelines and then the training part. And then the other three are what I just talked about. You have different ways to ask these questions in different way, right? So it is a completely, it is a low code platform, in the sense your ability to train or build data pipelines to getting answers, it's absolutely, it happens in a low code framework, which we provide, completely white labeled. What we really mean by white labeling, see, I said, it is almost like a virtual data set. So even though we call it a Kia, our implementations, our customers, they have an ability to brand it differently. Say, for example, one of our implementation is called Oscar. Another one is called Ginger. Another one is called Twinkle. So it is completely, that application is, can be rebranded, even the look and feel and all, including the wake word, the way, they ask these questions. It's to the customer's needs. So it is a white labeled application. Omni-channel, as I said, it is available as a web platform as well as mobile. Any data source, any size, simple English constructs. I mean, those are like some very high level features of what is available. Some of these, I'll again, I'll be able to show in a demo quickly, right? Why ultimately what everything boils down to. Remember, I was talking about one of the biggest problem today, we have is the delay in getting access to information, right? So the primary goal or primary objective of Kia is to, can we really improve the time to market? Can someone have an instance of this analytics application up and ready, available in a very, very short period of time without any writing code? I think that is the whole objective behind, our low code framework, which say some of our implementations, it's like it's either based on the size of the data, right, from few minutes to few hours a day. I think that's how that's all it takes for you to get an application up and running, right, without writing any code. And again, it's just brief list of some of the features which I'll show in a demo very soon, right? So what is, in summary, what does Kia really bring? I mean, it's there are like some four aspects of it. Simplest conversational interface, which gives you the ability to ask questions in English. And then, it can respond back in voice, visuals, and, the insights are more to do with the discoverability part of it. And of course, it's anything to do with data today. One of the important factors around security and privacy, it has its own way of role-based access control to control access on who can really see what data, and then what kind of questions, or what kind of could be responses could be given to who and all that. So it has a very decent rollback access or back facility built in, and there are ways to mask PII data, in terms of, say, if it is an email address, phone number, and all that, you have a way to mask it before it responds back. All those privacy and security controls are available within the platform, right? So ultimately, the bottom line is this, what it really entails is, it kind of simplifies the data access to everyone in the organization. That's the goal which Kia tries to solve, right? It is completely built on Azure. Even though it is kind of cloud neutral, but most of our implementations, our platform, it's kind of cloud agnostic. It can run on GCP, AWS, or Azure, but most of the platforms, our implementations are in Azure. It extensively uses Azure Cognitive Services and all the the common Azure cloud components. That's what K is built on. And see, whenever we talk about the language-based solutions, the first question we normally get is, hey, yeah, all these things look good. How good is accuracy? Especially with relates to the speech part of it and all that. I mean, see, this is where I was telling you some of the vendor cognitive services libraries, whether it is to relate to speech recognition or your language understanding and all, very good level of maturity in terms of the accuracy. Some of them are very, as they say, they're closer to the human comprehension levels. It's again, I'll be very open to say that, hey, it takes time to achieve that, but at the same, it is definitely possible. As I said, some of our implementation, or rather challenging implementations, have been on the healthcare space, right? It's not just about understanding the English vocabulary. The complexity in the healthcare domain is more to do with the drug names, or there's so many of the abbreviations, homophones, and all that. See, it's like somebody might refer to the same drug as doxycycline, somebody might call it as doxy, somebody might call it as 10 mg, 10 milligrams. All these kind of add to the complexity of it. But today, there are ways to achieve very, very good accuracy levels, even with these complexities. I think that's what I really wanted to reiterate here. It's very much possible today. I mean, we do have our platform kind of provides you those abilities for you to say, how do you build a vocabulary, with different synonyms? How do you keep retraining the models so that, it matures over a period of time and gives you or rather understands, and then responds back to these questions using the different synonyms and all that. I think all those capabilities are, I mean, it's definitely possible with this with the platform which we have. Right? So just a quick glimpse of some of our happy customers where we have done this implementation, and right. And as I said, it's for you to get an application up and running. It's like from few minutes to hours. That's all it takes. to days based on the complexity of the data, where it is, where we really sometimes, when we do these enterprise implementations, the challenge is more not getting the application up and running. It is more to do with the data sits in different places within the organization. How do we really build the pipeline and then bring the data to care? I think that's where sometimes most of the time goes. But otherwise, most of the features on how to get responses from K8s, it's pretty much comes out of the box with our low code framework, right? So while doing this, let me now take a pause and then quickly take you to a few demos. Okay, perfect. Thanks. So this is, let me repeat it. So it's like I talked about the three different variations of Kia. One is the question widget or the search bar, the chat application, as well as the mobile. So let me start with this, the most common one with enterprises, which is like the search bar. You have an ability to embed this widget completely white label anywhere within your application, right? So, and to ask this question, to kind of what kind of data sets, as I said, it doesn't matter whatever. There are like quite a few examples I have. Let me just start with something like, it is on the global power plants. Say, for example, so the question is more like this, where do we have the plant with the maximum capacity in wind? So the data set, so so you have this, it's in China, and then say, for example, let me ask another question. Hey, show me the nuclear power plants in, say, in Japan, right? So basically this data set, it has a lot of information about the power plants, right? There is a whole bunch of data elements here, and Kia absolutely, it's all it cares about these data attributes, and then it can just bring it back. So it says, hey, there are 16 power plants in. So let me have another one. There is a whole bunch of stuff, which I've already, hey, show me the top five, say, on the power plants in India by type, right? So it's like you have 158. There are nearly a significant portion of them are solar, wind, and all that. And then this is what I was telling you about how it responds back. I'll quickly show an example for the voice as well, right? There is a number, there is a chart type, and you have an ability to drill back, to the underlying data. All these, usually if you have to equate it to any other tool, common tool, which we have today, right? We might be having a dashboard with different kind of metrics or a report or an Excel sheet, and then we will try to apply some filters or look at this data with some different filter conditions, and then grouping and all that. That's the way we would consume it. Rather, we are saying, hey, why don't we just ask those questions in English, right? And you have few other features like, hey, if I really want to look at it in a different way, different forms and all that. So let me quickly show. So this is an example on, say, the power plants, right? Let me take you another one. Say, for example, this one. This information is on our cloud computing costs. Right. So I can say that, hey, show me what is the most expensive service category in 22. Whereas that, I'm really paying so much money. So it can say that, computers takes up 75% of my costs. And you can see that my question was more on, hey, show me the most expensive service category. It says, hey, it is compute. It also gives you the other information. Hey, 75% of it goes to compute, and this is the cost, and so many of. So that, say, it's another example I can give you is, it's like, hey, show me the team with the least charges. See, even though I'm picking up some of these questions from the past, it's not that the interface is limited to few questions. It just, it's not limited. It is just open. You can just ask whatever question, you want to say, for example, in the second quarter, instead of second quarter, I can change it to say, hey, right? Whatever it is, it's just going to come back and then, with the response. So all it cares about is, if you go here, hey, these are the data elements I have, and this is the data, which is the underlying data underneath. On any of these data elements, it's just going to come back with the response. That's all it does. It is not like pre-built to answer few, hard-coded questions and all that, right? So I talked about when we said NLU and all that, the complexity is with it's the synonyms, the vocabulary and all that, right? So say for example, if you take this, so this is what you call is also called as, this is the way we kind of train Kia on the vocabulary. What we're really saying is, hey, you know what, this particular one, the cost or the service category can be called as a category, or some people might call it as a type. Or let's take this another example, right? You have application. The application might be, people might call it as a cost center, CC, or they may call it as an app or cost center. All of this really mean the same thing, right? Say, for example, I can ask this question, hey, so, or the same question, I can ask it by CC, because it knows CC is a synonym for application, and both it's still going to produce the same result. This is one very key aspect in the language interface, right? I mean, because when humans we communicate, we do use different variations of it. It's not that, and especially, if you're coming from a data background, right? I mean, you would relate to, there is a very common problem in the data management space. It's around the data glossary, right? You have the technical definitions of the data. Say, what I really mean by that is, so it is called as, the attribute name is called application, but there is also what we call as a business term. How the business people really refer to that, the data attribute is, this is a very common, data management issue in across enterprises, in the sense either the business users or the non-technical users have to learn or be aware of the technical names, or the technical name. I mean, they really may not know how it is really used in the normal, the business world. I think that's what we really solved by this, the vocabulary. So the attribute name could still be called as application, but the business users, for them to to simplify it for them, you can define synonyms, say that, hey, whether it is CC, app, cost center, or whatever it is. That way, your business users will have the ability to ask the same question in different terms, which they are comfortable with. It could be called as a cost center or application. Still, it produces the same result, because Kia kind of understands, hey, these two mean the same thing, and then, let me respond back, right? So say, I mean, there are, as I said, there are quite a few stuff. Let me give you a few another example here, right? So which is, say, let me take. Okay, so here is a good one, which we normally use internally. It's around for our defects, for our quality of the application and all, right? So say, for example, I'm asking this question, hey, which month did we have the maximum number of defects? So it comes back, since we are talking about a month, it comes back to the month value, and then, it gives you the result and all that, right? So this is one interface. I mean, as I said, you can keep training Kia on any data set, and you have an ability to switch the context and just ask a question. The same thing, you can even do that with the voice interface. So you just click the microphone, very similar to how you have the microphone in a search bar. You just. Sorry, let me do it again. I think, yeah, I was talking something. And so show me the defects from May 22. Okay, I think the problem was my microphone is shared by the Meet, so there is a conflict. So you basically, you just click the microphone and then start asking questions. That's as simple as that, right? So this is what we call as a search or a question widget interface, right? The same thing, we have it as what we call as a chat interface. Imagine this like how you have the Microsoft Teams application today, or any other chat application which we use for collaboration, whether it is Slack, Google Chat, or Teams and all that, right? So now here, the problem we are really trying to solve is, so imagine a scenario like this. Hey, you are looking at a data problem, you're analyzing, say, the sales numbers. You're asking this question, hey, analyzing the sales numbers for the last quarter. Suddenly, you see that, hey, some number doesn't look good. What do? We take a screenshot of that, send it to somebody, hey, and then type in something, hey, Jack, can you look at this? Why is this trending down? That person is going to look at it and then say, hey, I don't think you're looking at the wrong data. This is the way the interaction kind of typically happens today, right? You have, distributed tools, one to do the analytics, another one for communication and all that. So we thought, why can't collaboration happen on a chat interface, just like how we are communicating with human beings, right? Can we really bring Kia, which is a virtual data analyst, also into this platform so that all the players who are involved in the decision making or who are working on this data, can they really collaborate on data, right? That is the whole idea behind a chat interface. So let me give you an example. Say, for example, let me go take you back to, so this, the sales analytics stuff, right? So I'm going to ask questions around, say, so let me ask you this. Okay, so now so I just asked, hey, show me the furniture sales in California in 2017. So he says, this is the sales, this is the average, you had so many orders, and it also shows me a trend. Hey, this is how it is. Since we're talking about 2017, on different dates, these are the sales and all. But look at some of these options, it is also suggesting. It says, hey, would you like to break it down by this? Hey, say, for example, the segment, right? So the same sales numbers, now, it gives me an option, hey, the consumer segment, the corporate, this is how the data is. And then, right? Say, for example, I have someone who's responsible for home office, and then, they're not, this number doesn't look right. So what I can do is, I can engage in a conversation with the same person. So say, for example, I have one of my team member here. I can invite in. So let me Alex. Okay, Alex, you're there. Okay, so I'm sure Alex would have got this message. So what basically happens is, so rather than me taking a look at this number and communicating with Alex, through emails and all that, what really happens is, the three of us with Kia and Alex and myself, we have a collaboration, we have an interaction right here, within chat. That's pretty much, what we do here, in the sense, our goal is to promote collaboration on the data analytics, within the platform itself, right? I think, I guess he's not there. So that's okay, but that's the whole idea behind this. Bharat, let me ping you. So you can bring in whoever you want, who all the stakeholders, different stakeholders into it, and then engage in a conversation, and all of you look at the same set of data, and we collaborate on it. I think that's the whole idea behind this. Bringing in is more as a chat interface, and just like the different threads, you have all these stuff, your historical conversations, everything kind of, it's persisted. And one very common, example, or rather the way our users use, let me give an, use case about of it, right? What we call as the storyboards. Okay. So say, for example, I'm doing an analysis on the quality of a particular projects, right? So I start with something like, hey, so I ask a whole bunch of questions, and then, hey, and then, so say, for example, I'm going to make a presentation on this to my team. So what I can do is, hey, this metric, I like this. So what I do is I go here, I create what I call as a storyboard, and I can add an annotation saying, hey, add it. And say, for example, I can say that, So I have chart here, and say, for example, I want to look at it as a bar chart, or I want to look at it as area chart. Now, this is also something I really like. So what I can do is I can add it to my storyboard. And so now, I'm also looking at it's like who's really by team. I really want to do that. So this is another metrics, and then which I have, say for example, I add it here to the storyboard, and then so I add it. So what happens is this storyboard kind of it gets I have a storyboard here. I can come here and then use Kia for the presentation, whatever the metrics which we just had. Um, Rather than the way we call the common way we normally do these days is hey you have a BI tool or an Excel sheet, you produce these various charts, you put it in a presentation and then do it. Rather now you have your own storyboard. This can be presented, right? So these different metrics which you had. The important thing to note here is um, unlike a presentation, these data are real. As you navigate, as you are really doing the presentation, you have an ability. I mean, you can see that Kia is really getting you the most recent data, right? What this is what we really call as live storyboards. Now, it's almost like you are doing a presentation with the most current data, and you also have an ability to refresh it. Say, for example, while in the meantime, based on the frequency of the data, if there is a possibility that the data changes, you have an option to refresh this, and have Kia bring the latest, the data and all that. I think this is what we call as a storyboard feature, within Kia, which can be used for, the way you normally do is you do extensive analysis, using asking all these kind of questions. But finally, there could be few questions, which you feel, or few answers which you feel are the most important one, and then which you really want to use it for a presentation, or or rather sharing it with somebody and all that, right? And the other thing is, as I said, it's not just about having the answers, your ability to take actions or do follow-ups and all that, right? So Kia provides a whole bunch of integrations. I mean, there are a few samples I can show you. Say, for example, I can share this, say, this particular metric with somebody. So I'm going to share it with myself, say, right? And what this will do is we use Google Chat for, collaboration. So if I can quickly show you, so it's like, so Kia just responded back, whatever the metric which I had here, you can share the, say, for example, you're looking at a number, you really want someone else to, you want to share this particular piece of information, whether you want it through, say, you can do the same thing via email, or say you have them in your collaboration platform. So the same thing, what Kia basically did, the same response, it kind of shared it here, um, right, within the collaboration platform. Right. So lot more. I mean, say, yeah, I was giving this example where you have someone responsible for this, and then you really want to create a task, or assign a task to them and all. You can do all kinds of integration. Say, for example, if this is you want to post an entry in your CRM tool, or say I can create a task for somebody. We use Notion for defect tracking. So what I can do is I can go here. I can start creating an entry in Notion, and so this is just going to open, provide uh, ability for me to track this particular defect and then assign it to somebody, and with whoever it is, the right team, the right module, and all that. I think that is those kind of integrations are also it's possible with Kia, and in the sense that's why I said it's kind of one comprehensive platform where you bring in the data. Once you have the data, you have an ability to ask the questions, collaborate with others and take actions, with different tools and all that. That's pretty much, what, it really lets you do. And quickly, what I can also do is show you an example of how this really works in a mobile, which is very popular, especially these days when you're traveling, or rather, when you, when you're in a meeting or whenever, you have a need to really have a piece of information, just like how you would talk to or rather chat with somebody, right? That's where this, the mobile tools also becomes very. So let me just quickly show you how it, one example of how it looks in a mobile. Uh, I'm just going to give me one moment. Casting my mobile phone here. Right. So the same, the questions, whatever, we just asked, say, I have already asked few examples here, right? This is the way it looks. I can go here and ask a question on, say, so it's going to bring me the same information. So whether it is the mobile app,
$0.6 million is $0.6 million.
Right. So since it is a mobile device, it also has the voice response part of it, and but it's the same application, available, as I said, on the as a search widget or as a chat application on the mobile, and or even in the collaboration platforms, like you can have Kia available as a bot in Teams or Slack and all that, right? I think it's completely omni-channel that way. So, any questions on the demo so far? Okay, so in fact, I mean, that's pretty much what I had today. Kind of concludes the session. So, if you have additional questions, if you really, we do work with our customers, in terms of different ways. If you're really interested in trials or want to do a deep dive or look at examples specific to your implementation, we'd be more than happy to do follow-ups. Please do reach out to us. These are coordinates, and uh, we would also share a recording of this, and feel free to reach out to us.